Warning, the following podcast is a shit show, and the individuals you are about to meet are idiots. Their opinions, anecdotes, and advice contain zero nutritional value. This is the critical human condition and all of its strangeness. This is life, according to an idiot.
What's your top qualities that you look for in a person? So all the women out there listening are able to follow suit.
I like when they wear blazers with insane shoulder pads.
Ooh, yeah.
So that they look like a football player who has put on a button-up.
Hell yeah.
My next demand, let's put it that way, is it's good to have both ears.
Okay, that's an
I think
important
that
one.
if you
are
miss
you
an
talking
ear,
about
you look weird.
hearing or just the ears?
The literal ears. They can be
Okay.
deaf, that's okay. They need to have them on the sides of their skull. And my third demand is that you have to...
Well, we already have the ears and we already have the blazers. Those are the important things.
Oh, you need to have a centimeter gap between each of your teeth.
Okay, yeah.
And your teeth need to be like grounded down small.
Right, like the nail file. Like you file them down so it's like...
I like to see that.
That's good. Those are the good three things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
An optional one is webbed fingers. Just sort of a plus. If you don't have them, it's fine. I'm not unrealistic, you know?
But if you see a woman with webbed fingers, you're like,
Definitely
yes.
a plus. Who am I kidding? I'm a sucker for good swimmers.
I think that's as good an intro as any.
Hey, everybody.
It's me, Kaylee, your favorite, hey, did you know this person?
I'm Jeremy, your patron saint of misinformation.
Ooh.
But misinformed is still informed, right?
Just on the wrong information.
Right. I'm not what the mainstream media would consider informed. How about that?
Yeah, you're fake news informed.
Yeah. No, I avoid fake news. I only read Breitbart.
Okay.
And I am here to, what are we here for?
We're here to talk.
We're here to talk. We're here to talk. We're also here to hopefully, at the end of this, teach you something.
Yeah. So, unicorns. What do you think about those?
False.
Narwhals.
True.
Yes.
You didn't know that?
No.
You didn't know that narwhals were real?
No, I thought they were fake. I thought they were like unicorns. Everybody like lumped them in with unicorns, and also their horns are so fucking big.
Their own little subspecies
Yeah.
of...
Do you know their horn is a tooth?
Disgusting.
That's
That comes out of...
technically a tooth.
That is erupting from their skull?
Yes. It's like triple their size. Is this giant ass tooth that they impale things with? What do they do once they impale it? I have no idea.
It just sits there, I guess.
Yeah, it rots and then it falls off
Can
eventually.
you imagine that? They finally go in for the kill and they're like, I don't know why I didn't think this out. How am I going to get this off? I
Yeah.
don't have arms.
And it's like some kid is like, I love narwhals because they're cute and funny. And it's like
Yeah.
the sea unicorn. And then they see a real life narwhal and it just has a bunch of carcasses
And
stuck to
barnacles all over its bodies. Eyes the size of your skull. And one giant bloody tooth.
They're horrifying looking. Honestly, they're scared. Like the ocean is just fucked.
Oh, ocean? No, thank you. I've always, I think it's called like thalassophobia or something. I think I'm totally mispronouncing that. It's something with a thas. There's a thas in it. But
Ooh.
it's the fear of the ocean deep. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
me too.
Leviathans, like the idea of leviathans typically underwater is so terrifying to me.
Okay, how about this? Are you scared of a sponge that lives under the sea by the name of SpongeBob SquarePants?
Well, if I found a sponge that had teeth and eyelashes, yeah, I guess I'd be afraid of that.
SpongeBob is just like I know you guys probably know why I brought this up.
Yeah, go ahead, just say it. Just say it, you vulture.
Ugh. So Steven Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob, has passed away, and I was really heartbroken about it because SpongeBob was like my favorite show growing up.
Yeah.
And it's really shaped my sense of humor. It's like, wow, SpongeBob, you taught me so many things.
Yeah, SpongeBob was a great show. It's still super watchable. But you know what I watched recently that was on? It was on demand.
What's that?
My Life as a Teenage Robot. Did you
I
watch
used
that
to
show?
love
Yeah.
that show.
So I loved that show. Like I watched it again, and it was like still good.
It's
I was
one
like,
of those
whoa.
shows that you, like at least for me, I felt like I dreamt. I made up in my head,
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah.
actually find it, and I'm like, holy shit,
Because they never
that was real.
There was never like reruns of it that I
No.
can remember. It was weird. It was like it was on when I was a kid and then stopped playing it.
Mm-hmm.
But it had that weird like Art Deco, early 50s
Right.
drawing animation style. What
What
else?
other ones?
What other ones were there?
Yeah, I'm really curious
Let's
now.
walk through memory lane.
I found a good slideshow. Codename Kids Next Door.
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
ever watch that?
Yep.
I was in love with, I think it's number 4. It was the one with the green sweater and the black hair.
Number 4. Oh, you're talking about, okay. You're talking about the Kids Next Door. I don't know why. I looked at Ben 10 on this list I just pulled up. And in my mind, you were talking about like the 4th alien he can turn into. And I was like, what? Is that like the Cyclone one or something?
No, they were all named with numbers.
Yeah, number 4 was, who's that?
I think number 4 was the green sweater girl.
Asian girl, yeah.
Maybe, no, that was number 3, I think.
That was definitely number 3. Number 5 was black. Number 2 was fat. Number 1 was bald. They all have distinct characteristics.
You're totally right.
Number 5, I think, was Australian. Number 4 was Australian.
Number 4 is the black girl, right?
No, she's number 5. I remember this because in my elementary school, we used to have these cartons of milk. And number 5 was on there, and she was holding out her hand as if to hold out like 5 fingers, but I think she had 4 because of the cartoon. And on her, it says, number 5 makes milk number 1.
Nah,
it was like to inspire us to drink more milk.
As a kid, because I watched so many spy stuff, like Totally Spies and Kim Possible, I was convinced when I grew up I was going to become a spy. I made my career choice when I was like 7 years old, and I was going to be a spy. Mm-hmm. And I actually went through most of my middle school career wanting to be an FBI agent. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but like...
What a bitch.
I know, like, you know, and like you have career day in middle school or whatever, and you show up and you have to write down like...
Who you want to be and why.
Which one you would pick and why.
I hated that so much because it ended up being like, do you want to go talk to the guy that owns a bank, the guy who owns a bar, or the guy who like owns like an ad agency?
Yeah, and like I never wanted to be any of them.
Same, yeah.
So I like wouldn't fill it out. I was like, I'm going to be an FBI agent. And the response I always got was, but you're going to have kids one day. That's a lot of responsibility and that's a lot of work.
Did they really say that to you?
Yeah. They're like, do you want to leave your kids? Like, you're going to have a family. You don't want to be away for that long.
Who was teaching you? That's terrible.
Every person I talked to about this told me that. It's always, if I mention it, like, I don't want to have kids. They're like, you'll change your mind. When you get older, you'll change your mind. You'll want to have them.
There are some people, like, they just shouldn't have kids.
People just get so weirdly upset if you don't want to have kids. It's just, like, expected of you.
We have so many people, like, we don't need to keep on repopulating at the rate we do. Like, we should be encouraging people to, if they want to, not have kids.
Right. We've already reached, like, if the entire world was consuming resources the way that just the U.S. is, we would all be dead. There's no way we could. It's not sustainable. We've already passed the limit of the amount of people, like the cap for the Earth's resources. We've already reached that point, and the only reason we haven't felt the consequences is because so many people are impoverished, which is so weird to think about.
Yeah. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Thank God for poverty.
Thank God for poverty.
Right?
I thought it was super interesting, and I always talk about it because I just think it's super interesting. But like in India, certain parts of India, each woman has on average 6 children. We're at a point in like society now where women don't need to like get married and have kids right away. Education is big, and a lot more women are wanting to go to college and have careers and establish their jobs first before like starting a family or having kids, or just not having kids or getting married at all.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I think that each generation we start to be more and more self-concerned, more consumed with your own life, not about continuing your family name. I have really old grandparents. I had really old grandparents, and they were the generation where it's like, man goes to work, comes back, woman has a job until she gets married. Then they get married, pump out kids, and they're miserable for 60 years until they're dead. That's like the goal. And then so their kids, my parents, that generation, like, you know, sort of coming of age in the 70s, you know, you've seen Woodstock happen, you've seen Kent State happen, you've seen, you know, the counterculture becomes almost the main culture, and people are expanding the way they think and the way they approach life. And so they're going to college now, which is something that their parents never did and never had to. Mm-hmm. And then you go another generation. College is becoming a necessity. Everyone's expected to go to college. Where before you're expected to get married outside of high school, now you're expected to go to college outside of high school. Mm-hmm. This goes on and on and on. Now today we're thinking like you hear about a couple of 25-year-olds getting married, you go, oh, that's pretty young.
Right.
Which like back in the day, it's like if you were 25, you should already have like...
Right. Like if you weren't married by like 21, it's like, what are you doing?
Right.
Your clock
exactly.
is
like
ticking.
It's some valuable Yeah. Helen, your eggs are not valuable. Don't worry.
Don't worry.
Relax.
Work on yourself. Like another, I guess, ethical situation that we're coming into now is gene editing. A Harvard scientist had successfully edited the genes on an embryo, and it was born, and it was a healthy baby girl. And a lot of people were like, well, hold on. That's not ethical.
You know what's impossible? Saying edited.
Edited, yeah.
Edited.
Edited.
They edited it. Like if you say edited it, it's impossible.
They edited it.
They edited it. Edited it.
I don't remember what genes they ended up changing, but now a lot of people think there's going to be designer babies.
Right.
Where
There probably will be.
Yeah, where they edit the genes so that, they look nice or they're athletic or all
Which
these
is
other
going to be
things.
terrible for like job competition.
Right, or athletics. I know a lot of doctors were really upset about it because where does it end? But you also have to think if you're able to stop people from having an incurable disease, I think that is worth researching and trying to help. It's sorry, I don't want to help you because I'm scared people are going to make their hair brown. Their babies, they want them to have
Right.
blue eyes.
Right, yeah.
They might be really strong.
It's
babies.
literally eugenics.
Eugenics.
Like I don't know if it's called study or movement of trying to create a pure race.
Okay.
A perfect race, a perfect human.
Okay.
And that's typically considered unethical. Like Hitler was doing that with eugenics.
Right,
He's
okay.
Blue eyes, blonde hair. That's the way we like it.
But I feel now that it's coming to light, form a committee, kind of, I don't know, make the boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
It should be strictly medical.
Yeah. Otherwise, what's going to happen is we're going to land ourselves in some sort of futuristic sci-fi movie scenario where we have to create a legion of future cyborg cops that ride around on motorcycles and they kill genetically modified humans.
Well, there's also the thing is the standard of beauty always changes. So you might make your baby super hot, but then in 10 years, they're super ugly because the standard of beauty changed. 10 years ago, it was super thin and pale and, razor thin eyebrows.
Nowadays, it's I want to give my baby a giant ass.
Yeah, I want to have giant tits, a giant ass.
I want a big titty, thick ass son.
Hey, but what happens if you make your son look like that? And then he's hideous when he gets older.
He'll always be beautiful to me. He's my son.
What are you going to tell your son? You were beautiful when you were a baby, but I'm sorry, now you're just hideous.
That's what every parent says to their kid, though, right?
I'm trying to think if it's time for science.
It might be time for science. Kind of a sciencey topic.
Mm-hmm. Science is cool, and today we are cool. Boom. A little science boom. So, on the topic of sickness, my science is all about vitamin C.
Ooh.
I don't know about you, Jeremy, but whenever I start feeling sick, everybody always yells at me, take vitamin C. Just drink some emergency and you'll feel better. You gotta kick the cold in its butt when it starts, and then you'll feel better.
Hey, question.
Yeah.
What does the C stand for?
Vitamin C. Just a little background. Vitamin C is an essential vitamin, meaning that our body doesn't produce it itself, so that we must attain it from foods or from vitamins, like supplements if you need it. You do what you want to do. I guess why this came up, people thought that vitamin C would help for colds, is that vitamin C stimulates white blood cells and it can produce antibodies and act as an antioxidant. So they assume that if your body was really stressed out and you take vitamin C, you got the antioxidant going on and you get more white blood cells, that'll help for your body to kind of recover faster.
Right.
But they actually found it really only made a big difference among active people. So people like marathon runners and skiers, army troops, really, really heavily active people.
Ooh, that's a sick burn from the CDC.
Right. If they take at least 200 milligrams of vitamin C supplements, it reduced the risk of a cold in half. But for the general population, taking a daily vitamin C didn't seem to help with the risk. But they did find that taking vitamin C did reduce symptoms by 8% in adults and 14% in children. So it's about one less day of sickness.
That's totally worth it, though.
But in order to get that result, you need to consume vitamin C every day and not just at the start of your sickness.
Like every day of your life?
Yeah, every day of your life, you would need to take a vitamin C supplement. in order to reap the benefits of one less day of sickness. So if you're starting to feel sick and you're like, I'm going to take a vitamin C or I'm going to drink an emergency packet.
It's too late.
Yeah, it's too late and you're done for. You're just going to have to suffer.
Wow. Yeah, because if you do that, you're really playing the long game.
Like, a lot of doctors don't recommend taking just supplements just for the sake of taking supplements because, like, vitamin C is water soluble, which means if you take more than the amount that you need, you're just going to pee it out.
Right.
There's going to be no real benefit. So if you're already getting the vitamin C you need from your foods, then you're basically just pissing out your money.
I'm going to be pissing away my money regardless, so whether it's literally or...
Literally with supplements or other ways.
Flashlight.
Buying a $70 flashlight, Either way, it's turned into bodily fluids, right?
Yeah, there you go. So I thought that was interesting. Because I feel, every time I get sick or I'm starting to feel sick, everybody that's always the number one thing they say. Now you can all tell those people of the world, hey, fuck off. I did my research.
It kind of blows my mind that vitamin C, the C actually stands for carcinogen.
Doesn't.
I'm joking. It stands for cardboard.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you got him.
Nope. It stands for chameleon.
Ooh.
Nope. Actually, it stands for cat.
Ooh.
No, I'm just kidding. It stands for Christine,
Wow.
which is your middle name.
People get really offended if you don't like cats.
And I don't understand. They walk on the tables. If you own a cat, you're a cuck.
They push things off the table
Yeah,
just for the enjoyment that it shatters on the floor and you have to sweep it up for them.
Yeah, that's what I do when I'm drunk. Why would you buy me when I'm drunk?
There are some really cool cats out in the world.
And some cute cats. Absolutely.
Yeah, some cute cats for sure. But I'm not a cat person.
But I feel like cat ownership is like an exclusive book club, and then dog ownership is like a nude beach. Hey, come on. Oh, you don't want to? That's fine. Whatever.
You don't like my dog? All right. I guess that's a little weird.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to judge you.
I can't judge. I'm too busy playing with my dog.
So on the note of cat and dog mom / dads.
On that very loose note, we're making it big. We're jumping.
We're
a huge
making
gap right now.
a very big segue into Tinderellas.
Tinderellas.
Cinderella?
Would you mind if I spread Nutella on her butt and ate it?
Where we make fun of people on Tinder.
Yep. It's super
Shallow.
very shallow and very
Kind of mean.
very mean. Yep. We don't release the names and stuff. And
Name them ourselves.
Yeah.
So this is Brad. All right.
Oh boy.
Mid-30s. And his bio says, you're probably basic and boring. You probably wear Ugg boots, pants that say sexy on them, North Face jacket, and have some Starbucks in your hand. P.S. You don't have to be a gym rat. Just be intelligent, interesting, and engaging.
Here's my issue with this is that he described us to a T, and it cuts
hurts
down
me.
it cuts to the bone, frankly.
Right.
I mean, look at us. We're both sitting here with pants that say "sexy" on the ass. We're both both drinking Starbucks right now.
We both are wearing Ugg boots and our North Face jackets.
I took my North Face off because it's getting kind of hot in here. But yeah, if you're gonna judge me for wearing pants that say "sexy" on the ass, like I do that for me, okay?
All right.
Not for you, Brad.
You don't know if I'm intelligent or not because you haven't taken the time to get to know me.
Exactly. That's his problem. Yeah.
Lay one on me, Jeremy.
Oh yeah. Let me. So this is one that was actually sent in by a listener.
Ooh.
So this one was sent in by a close friend of the show, Bobby. Bobby says, rearrange my guts. No, this isn't Bobby. This is the screenshot doesn't have a photo, but I assume a very beautiful young woman. Let's call her semicolon.
What's her age? Approximately.
Let's just say she's in her 20s.
Okay.
Semicolon says, rearrange my guts, but build a future with me at the same time. You have to be able to reach them in order to rearrange them.
Oh my God.
Several emojis. Want someone who I can go places with, who's not afraid to try new things with me. Someone who's honest and who I can be honest with. Someone to match my fly with. What's that mean? Someone to... what does that mean? My fly.
Your coolness.
My fly with. God, I'm so not cool. Okay. You know what? That was actually... It turned into like a nice little bio.
That's what we all need. Someone to rearrange our guts.
Yep. And to match my fly. And then
That'll
we
be
can
fun.
buy a house. We can only buy a house on the exception that you rearrange my guts with your sexual organ. Because what she's saying is, I want you to have sex with me so aggressively that I
That can't be fun, right?
die? That I
don't
die.
know. Yeah.
Just think of like the medical trauma of that and like what you have to live. You're going to probably have a colostomy bag. You're going to be living in a world of pain.
Fun fact, the vagina is actually only about 4 inches long, but when stimulated, it stretches to be much longer to accommodate for stuff.
Gross.
But naturally, it's
To
only about...
accommodate for my 4.5 inch penis.
So it actually enlarges. It
Yeah.
stretches itself out.
Yep. Us big boys, we
Isn't
need
that-
some.
Ugh, so
we need
weird.
some of that extra centimeters, you know.
Yeah, so weird. So I got one more.
Mm-hmm.
This is gonna be Snoop. He is early 40s, and his bio says, dating apps are the absolute reason relationships are becoming short-lived or non-existent at all. Everyone has become so easily accessible, yet completely disposable. 6'5" and fit, ... Probably more fun than you can comprehend, and free in many ways most will never be.
Oh my gourd. I like how he starts off with society sucks, everyone is shallow, 6'5", fit, more fun than you.
Dating apps suck, and I judge you very much for being on it, but not me, because I'm just doing it for fun, and you don't understand that, because I'm 6'5" and fit.
Kaylee, I think
I'm
you're
so much more fun than you.
you are underestimating the power that comes with owning a Planet Fitness gym membership. And also listening to the Joe Rogan podcast.
The real gains go to the brain.
The real gains are brain gains.
Yeah.
I really want to close off with another one that I had. This is personally from my library of Tinderellas. Let's say that this young lady's name is Regina.
Oh, okay.
Regina.
I know exactly who you're talking about now. I can picture in my head this Regina.
Looking for a guy that's going to grab my ass and suck on my titties.
Ooh, same. Immediate swipe right.
Like, I can't wait to introduce you to my mom.
She's one of those lady in the streets and freak in the sheets.
A freak in the streets and a lady eating beets. That's what I am.
That's all you could ever want.
That's all you can hope to be.
Tinder's great. Are you having any luck finding love?
No.
Yeah, Jeremy. Fucking
Still
awful.
hasn't
Tinder
worked out.
sucks.
Yeah. So
All
that's a terrible segue into Spook Squad.
Okay. Spook Squad.
Spook Squad.
A Spook Squad. Ooh.
So, this episode's Spook Squad is The Black Monk of Pontefract.
Pontefract.
Parthenax. The Black Monk of Pontefract. This is the story of a family whose otherworldly nightmare grew to become England's most violent haunting.
Ooh. I like that. All right. Keep slapping those lips together. Tell me more.
So this is, I struggled to say true account because it is paranormal. And I know you're a skeptic, and I'm a skeptic too, even though I'm a huge fan of supernatural and paranormal stories.
It's just more fun to believe.
I will say that this is a true account of what many consider to be a poltergeist, and
Okay.
especially a demonic poltergeist.
So, can
A
you explain
malicious.
to the people what a poltergeist is?
So I'll picture a ghost, but it's like a prankster. It likes to interact with the environment, like throw lampshades over,
Right.
kick
like,
a dog,
mess
maybe.
with TVs and
Mess with
lights
TVs
and stuff.
and
Well, isn't
move
it
chairs around.
what differentiates it from other ghosts is that poltergeist is tied to a specific place?
Actually, the main thing is that it terrorizes.
Okay.
Its whole goal is to fuck with you.
Right.
Essentially.
Spook
Is
people
to-
out of their place.
It's pretty much, yeah. Typically, you'll see poltergeist activity in like old buildings that are getting remodeled because you're disturbing this ghost's maybe former home. And so all of a sudden the ghost gets all angry and he's poltergeisting all over the place and everyone's covered in poltergeist.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'm going to polter, and he geists all over your face.
It's disgusting.
Anyways,
I'm trying so hard.
so this is considered a precursor to the Enfield poltergeist, which, if you remember, we saw this together in theaters. The Conjuring 2.
Yeah.
Remember that? Like the British
That was
family that was all, you know what I'm talking about?
I remember because like I bought the tickets and
I was late.
you
I was
showed up
late.
late, and so to reconcile that, you bought me like a Slurpee and like all this candy and stuff. You're like,
Yeah.
here, eat.
Yeah, here you go.
I got this for
'Cause
you.
I felt terrible. Yep.
Yeah, thank you for that. It was great.
You're welcome.
The only thing I remember about that movie is them playing that Elvis Presley song.
Oh my God, same. I was literally, that is bizarre. Because as soon as you said that, I pictured that guy in the guitar doing Elvis Presley. It's kind of cringy, but also. Yeah. God.
That was such an iconic scene.
So iconic. Oh my God. But The Conjuring 2, good movie, check it out. But this isn't about that. This is a different story that also took place in England in a similar, if you remember in the movie, they kind of lived in these like government houses where it's like mass produced. These people live in the same kind of England in this around the same time, actually like a little bit earlier in the 60s.
Okay.
So where does this take place? What is the house that is haunted by this poltergeist? Well, across the pond in England, this is quite a famous location, 30 East Drive, West Yorkshire. That is the
Yorkshire.
I thought the cool people say Yorkshire.
Like Yorkshire puddings.
They say Shire like the Hobbit?
Yeah, I watched the Great British Baking Show and they made Yorkshire puddings and that's what they called it.
Yorkshire.
No, it's Yorkshire.
Guys, smash that like button if you think it's Yorkshire. Okay, so it takes place in a subdivision of government housing called Chesterfield Estates. In 1966, Joe and Jean Pritchard moved into 30 East Drive, bringing along their children, Philip, who was 15, and Diane, who was 12. Here's the kind of paranormal activity they dealt with. Lights turning on and off, furniture moving or flipping over on its own,
Okay, that's scary.
destruction of family photos,
Oh, scary.
objects levitating and or disappearing,
Okay.
unexplained stenches.
Huh.
Sorry, guys, I tooted. Disembodied voices, such as heavy breathing, was a very common one they would hear. And what disturbed the family the most, sightings of a black hooded figure, which would be the Black Monk. Despite the unexplained phenomena that the family dealt with, they were met with a lot of mockery from the locals because some newspapers ran the story and it kind of became a little bit of a media circus and people were like, you're lying, there's no ghosts here. But it was witnessed not only by the entire Pritchard family, including some extended relatives, but also this kind of activity was witnessed by police, priests, and even a local member of parliament.
So they saw the actual activity, right?
They saw things flying over the place. They heard sounds. They smelled.
So, okay. So
Smell
it was like a
stuff.
neighborhood, fuck that house.
Definitely. Oh, definitely. Yeah. One of the biggest source material for this story is from this author, Colin Wilson. He had a book called Poltergeist, a classic study in destructive hauntings. And
Oh, I think I've heard about that book.
in the book, he goes into detail about this specific story. And so if you want to learn more about it.
Yeah, maybe I'll read it.
So this family moves into this house. And where our story starts is on vacation.
Okay.
So the family, Joe and Jean, the mom and dad, went on a vacation. And the son, Philip, he didn't want to go.
Right.
And so the parents and Diane went on the vacation. I'm not sure where to. Philip stayed home under the watch of his grandma.
He's like, I want to be with my friends or go hang out in my room.
I want to just hang out with grandma. That's what he said. And so
There's a black monk in my house and I just want to
it's
chill.
cool. I just want to hang out with him.
I want to see what his hopes and dreams are.
Yeah. I want to rearrange his guts. So one day, grandma's in one of the rooms doing grandma stuff like knitting or whatever, or being racist. And Philip goes out to the garden to read a book, which seems very un-15-year-old to me, but this is 1966. There's this cold breeze that goes through the backyard, and the windows, he hears the windows start to rattle, and his grandma calls out to him and is like, is it storming out there? He's like, no, it's fine. Just a weird breeze. That's strange.
She's like, dumbass kid.
That's strange. Yeah. She's like, what are you doing
Storming.
shaking the windows?
Yeah.
You little weirdo.
Oh, yeah, you got some hooligan friends.
And so eventually Philip saunters back inside and he walks into the room that his grandmother's in, and it's raining.
Men.
Hallelujah is what he said. He's
That's
like,
how
hallelujah.
grandma died.
Yep. She was so overjoyed. She was thrilled to her body's limit.
Oh, God.
No, so he sees it's raining like dust. It's raining like this white chalk dust.
Oh, gross.
And the grandma was so into her knitting that she didn't even notice. And she looks up and she's covered in this dust. And first thing she does is she stands up and she goes, Philip, what did you do? Like, what is this about? What's really bizarre is when she stands up, it's only happening from below her shoulder level when she's standing up. It's not coming from the ceiling. The source of the chalk seems to be in the middle of the air.
Oh, okay.
Picture her if you were standing in a pool at shoulder length.
Okay, yeah. Huh.
It's really weird.
That's so weird.
Very bizarre. I don't understand what the monk was trying to do there, but
I just
so
confuse them. That's probably what I would do if I was a ghost. Just do really confusing things.
so they start kind of freaking out. So they call on to Aunt Marie, who lives down the street. And her name is Marie Kelly. Marie Callender. Gray casserole. They run over to Aunt Marie's house, and Marie was stated insane in that book. She says that her mother was so covered in that dust, she looked like a snowman. So the dust was real.
God. Ugh.
So Maria goes back to the house with them, helps them sweep up, and before she sweeps up, she sees on the floor this perfectly circular puddle of water.
Gross.
And she's like,
That was Grandma from The Raining Men.
She's just so darn excited. She couldn't help it. Yeah. So she wipes it up. And when she wipes it up, she looks, and there's another one that just formed on the floor too. She wipes that up. Another one forms.
So this isn't
perfectly
snow.
circular. Well, in there, that wasn't snow. It was like some weird ash. And so in the kitchen now, on the linoleum floors, there's these perfectly circular, no sign of splatter, water puddles. She soaks them up, and every time she gets rid of one, another one appears. So they end up calling the water company. The guy comes back, peels back the linoleum. He's like, there's no leak or anything. I don't know what it is. See ya. So everything's cleaned up, and the water guy was like, I don't know what it is. So they go home, and it's just Grandma and Philip again. That night, the tea dispenser, I don't know what that is, like just a dispenser of tea. It's a British thing.
Okay.
It starts to rapidly dispense tea, and they can't stop it. And Grandma's like, what's going on? And Philip's like, I don't know. So once it stops, they hear a crash, and the light goes on in the hall behind them. They're like, what's that? And they turn around, and they see the potted plant that was previously right next to the bottom of the stairs is gone.
Oh,
and the pot is at the top of the stairs, and the plant with the soil and the actual plant itself is strewn across the steps.
Oh.
That had to have happened in that split second they heard that bang.
Right. Grandma only turns away for a second. She has her eyes all over the place.
She's got eyes in the back of her head.
Yeah. That's how grandmas are. You ever seen a grandma? They don't let shit happen in their house.
Hell yeah, I've seen a grandma.
I don't know how I was trying to say. You ever seen a grandma?
This bitch is talking like I've never seen a grandma. Of course I've seen one.
Excuse me. Have you ever seen a grandma?
Okay, so they look at the steps, like, gee whiz, how spooky, a plant. Wow. And then there's another crash. They turn around, in the kitchen that they were just in, the cupboard is like vibrating violently, like an earthquake is happening. And they can hear the china and the cups rattling. And so Philip walks up and he opens the door and it stops. No more shaking. So they're like, wow, that's really, really weird. And then they hear another crash from inside the house. And
this will give me goosebumps.
yeah, for some reason, the grandma realizes that the distinct crash she just heard, that last one that came from deeper inside the house, she had heard that same noise the previous day when she was with Philip. And she didn't think anything of it. Then the temperature drops suddenly, and it's cold, and they see their breath. And they're both like, you know what? This is actually terrifying. Let's get the fuck out of here. So they get the fuck out. Mm-hmm. And that's when they go to the Kelly's house, which is Aunt Marie's house. Her married name is Kelly. Grandma and Philip, they spend the night at Aunt Marie's house. Aunt Marie is sympathetic because she knows that it's really something's off. She believes them because she's like, well, yeah, the weird water stuff and the weird dust. It's super.
Yeah.
Come over here. We don't understand what's going on over there. So they sleep upstairs, and Aunt Marie's husband comes home. His name's Vic. Marie tells Vic about what's going on. And he was like, well, it's probably a burglar in there. Like there's probably somebody in there. Let's call the cops and we'll go in there. So Vic calls the cops, the local boys. And so the cops go to 30 East Drive. They do a quick sweep of the house. They find nothing. But that night, Vic can't sleep. He's too busy thinking about it. He's like, that's so strange. Like the stories my wife told me, this house, something's wrong. And I can't stop thinking about it. So he wakes up his wife and they start talking. Mm-hmm. And he goes, hey, don't you have that friend that lives down the street conveniently and is like really into ghosts? And she was like, yeah. He goes, let's go talk to him. And she was like, yeah, sure, why not? Mm-hmm. So they go wake up this schmuck. His name's O'Donnell. I only know his last name.
This is still the 60s?
This is still 1966. Yep.
Okay.
And so all they have to do is they go like, hey, O'Donnell, there's some creepy stuff going down at that house. We think it's a ghost. And O'Donnell's like,
He's already out the door.
He's already got his
his
jacket
EVPs.
on. He's just like, let's go. I've waited for this.
Salivating.
Yeah. They go to that house and nothing really happens. It's cold. When they go in there, it's very cold, but nothing's happening. And O'Donnell's asking them questions about what was experienced. And he goes, well, based on what you're telling me, It sounds like this is a poltergeist.
He's a smart guy.
They start to leave the house because they're like, well, this is nothing. He goes, yeah, so he's explaining as they're leaving, as they're locking up. Yeah, there's nothing really weird about poltergeist. They just sort of do silly stuff like cut up pictures. And right when he says that, there's a sound from inside the house. And so immediately Vic unlocks the door and they go inside. And on the ground are 3 framed photographs. 2 are oil paintings, and 1 is Joe and Jean's wedding photo. And it's slashed from end to end. Right when he said they do silly things like cut up photos. Like he heard that and was like, you know what? I'm going to fucking do that just to freak him out.
Yeah. I mean, I would.
So they get the fuck out of there again because they're like, oh, spooky.
Yeah. Zoink, Scoob.
And so then the other Pritchards return from vacation. And they enter a world of pain where it's like, hey, by the way, a lot of crazy stuff is going on in your house. And they're denying it, like Joe and Jean and little Diane. They're like, what are you talking about? What? And Phil and Grandma keep on talking about these noises, these knockings that they heard. Like, oh, there's the weird thuds and knockings and whatever. And Joe goes, the dad, he says, what knocking? And right when he says that,
knocks.
They hear a large knock.
Oh.
It's super loud and it's a crash. And then there's a second knock and then the windows start to shake violently. And the cold breeze goes through the house. And everybody starts to panic.
Right, as you should.
And then nothing happens for 2 years.
It's building up its power.
So that was just the prologue.
Shit.
So now we move to 2 years later. In 1968, Jean, the mom, says, you know what? I think it's time to remodel Diane's room. Because Diane's now 14. She's kind of outgrown the look of her little kid room. It's time to remodel.
Right. No more narwhals on the wallpaper.
That's right. And so as soon as Jean starts to talk about it, as soon as she starts to prepare for this, the house starts getting angry almost. For example, bedspread gets thrown down the stairs. It's the bedspread from Diane's room. And she goes, what the hell is this? So she brings it back to her room.
Excuse me, bitch.
Yeah, and then the bedspread gets thrown down the stairs again. And she brings it back up. And then the bedspread from Philip's room gets thrown down the stairs. And she brings that back up. And she's like, what the hell is going on? And on top of that, a bunch of, I don't know why they have so many potted plants, but more potted plants upstairs are overturned. She's like, God damn, I gotta clean up all this mess. So later, she did not heed any of that, and she decides to remodel.
That's what women do. They see all the red flags, and they're like, I'm gonna do this anyway, because I want to.
The day that she starts to actually remodel, we're talking like paintbrushes and ladders and all this stuff, she gets this serious chill, and she has this feeling that something bad's gonna happen. So a paintbrush flies past her head, and also some wallpaper paste, which is a thing, just gets thrown like a glob against the wall. And she's like, oh, what the hell is going on? And you know what a carpet sweeper is? It's like those old-fashioned vacuums where it was like you just roll it and it's like kind of this heavy metal thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So one of those levitates in the air and starts to swing at her like a bat.
Ooh.
So she screams. And when she screams, she wakes up the rest of the family. So Diane, Philip, Joe, they all rush in and they see it too. And at that moment, the entire family is attacked with paintbrushes.
What?
It's like all of a sudden it's like, oh, we gotta go help our friend. They're getting their ass kicked, and then they all get their ass kicked.
Yeah.
So they're just
But
caught
by
in this
paintbrushes?
hurricane of paintbrushes and painter's tape and probably potted
What
plants.
do you even do? It's just like, fuck you. I'm gonna beat your ass with a
yeah, he's like, I
paintbrush.
hate all of you guys. This was my
Get outta
room.
here.
Why are you remodeling this? They're all screaming, having a terrible time, and it finally ends. And they're like, this is terrible. And it was terrible for another 9 months. They had this like perpetual poltergeisty
There's always a
things.
paintbrush gleaming around the corner.
There's just always something to just get thrown at their heads. When this broke, and by that I mean like the local newspaper started to show it around, they came up with the name for it. They called it Mr. Nobody. To sort of own it, Jean decides to make it a little bit more personal for her family. So she starts to call him Fred. She's like, you know what? I'm not going to call him Mr. Nobody. Everybody, this is Fred. It's okay. Don't be afraid. That was dumb on her part because Fred is terrifying.
And also, he probably doesn't like being called Fred.
Probably not.
Mr. Nobody sounds so cool.
People named Fred don't like being called Fred.
Oh.
So shit gets heavy. So they eventually get a priest to come do an exorcism. They're like, this is the next step. We got to get this place exorcised. And the priest is like, you know, honestly, typically we don't do exorcisms for poltergeists. Also, the church is very careful about when they do exorcisms. And so he's like, yeah, deuces. I'll see you later. I'm not touching this shit. Although it is creepy as fuck in here. And he leaves. So that night, as Diane is going up to bed, a large oak stand, like a table essentially, gets flung into the air and lands on top of her. And this is solid oaks. This is probably over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And she's pinned to the ground. She starts screaming, and everybody else starts screaming. They're trying to pry this table off of her, and they can't. It's just Philip and Jean at this point. They cannot.
Like it's too heavy, or there's too much force.
Either or.
Down.
They don't know. It's just like pinned on her, and they can't lift it up. And so for some reason, Jean gets the idea to tell her to relax, to take a deep breath and relax. And she does. And when she does, they're able to get it off of her.
That's some like actual movie.
The whole thing starts to play like a movie. So what's weird about this is that whole thing left her totally uninjured. Which kind of goes back to those weird rules of poltergeist where they don't actually really hurt you. They just sort of...
Right. But also it's kind of frustrating, I imagine, because you don't have any way to prove it.
Definitely. That night, Diane goes to bed. Whatever, I just gotta go to sleep. This is bullshit. She gets woken up 4 times by her mattress flipping over onto the floor.
Like while she's in it?
You know, while she's in it. She wakes up being flipped onto the floor in her mattress.
God. Yeah.
And so around this time, a local psychic befriends the family. What's significant about her is there's this whole story with her where I don't know if she was trying to do seances or what, but she just was trying to get a feel for the house.
Okay.
And there's an incident where she had caused, I don't know if she instigated it, but all the lights in the house went out and there were a bunch of loud sounds. And there had been a sandwich on a plate. And when the lights came back on, the plate was gone.
Somebody ate the sandwich.
They found a piece of the sandwich behind the TV and had big teeth marks, a big bite taken out of it. And they're like, what the
ghost was hungry the whole time.
Exactly. And then he's fine. And then that's the end of the story.
Wow.
So the psychic's like, oh, you know what? This is perfect. I'm going to take this as evidence. And then the sandwich strangely disintegrated within days.
Ah,
so that's
weird.
Good excuse there, psychic. So around the time that this group got really serious, the kids, both of them, both Philip and Rachel Ray, what's her name?
Jennifer Aniston?
Diane. So the kids had stomach problems. And the psychic points out, hey, you know what? Ever heard of your solar plexus? Yeah, the thing in the pit of your stomach? That's a big old chakra, boy.
Oh.
That's a big old chakra, and it's one of the chakras that is heavily tied to life force energy. I know Kaylee is a huge fan of chakras and life force energy. It's right there. It's a really serious science.
My mom actually tried to get me to do crystal healing for my seasonal depression.
And if you had given her a chance, it would have worked.
Yeah.
She also noted that, and this is a real thing, I guess, that there is like an underground river that runs through that area under their house.
Yeah, that's where they exchange the ghosts. They they tag out every now and again. What?
All right, bro. I just threw a fucking table on her.
I just took a bite out of a sandwich, freaked them the fuck out. They took it as evidence, bro.
You gotta play hard, dude. The psychic was like, well, a lot of times spirits are connected to water for some reason. Hence the water on the floor, the water under the house, and the water on my brain. So, this is my favorite part. This is when Aunt Maud comes to visit. Now, Aunt Maud is my favorite character in this because she is a total bitch and I love it. So, Aunt Maud gets word. This is this is Joe's sister. Aunt Maud gets word of the poltergeist and visits the Pritchards determined to debunk it. She's like, y'all are being crazy.
Right.
Let me teach you a thing or two, Auntie Maud style. And that's when, work, she starts to rap. There ain't no such thing as ghosts. Ghosts are just...
bitchin'
fake.
Losts.
Which, as we know, is German for poltergeist.
Yeah.
Picture this scene and tell me this isn't like out of like the movie Casper from 1996.
Never seen it.
You never saw the movie Casper?
No.
The Friendly Ghost.
Nope, never seen it.
Well, every other human being has seen it, so.
Okay.
So they're all in the kitchen sitting around the table talking, and Aunt Maud's like, and another thing, you guys are a bunch of idiots. There's no such thing as ghosts. God is our savior. She was an evangelical Christian, so she was very against the idea of like believing ghosts. So what happens is the lights go out, and she's like, what's this about? In the low light of the nearby fireplace, they can see the refrigerator door open on its own, and a carton of milk slowly levitates from the fridge. They're all watching it as it goes over Aunt Maud's head, tips over, and pours on that bitch.
Oh, yes.
That's some mad disrespect.
Damn.
Which then leads into
Ghost
a whole
can
other
stay.
leads into a whole other rap segment where she starts to rap about how milk is important for strong bones. But I won't get into that. Maybe I will. Milk, you see, is good, you see. So your bones can be strong. So immediately Maud's like, what the hell is this? And the lights come back on. She goes, oh, how convenient. The lights came on right after this got poured all over me. I bet it was one of your stupid kids. One of my gloves are missing. My beautiful fur gloves are missing. Where did they go? And they're like, shut up, Maud. No one likes you. You're covered in milk.
Gross. Your name's Maud.
Jean's like, hold on. My kids were sitting right next to me the whole time. They did not do any of this, okay? Our power goes off all the time. And it's this gosh darn ghost.
It's Fred. Freaking Fred.
It's freaking Fred, dude.
Freaking Fred. Come on.
So that night, there's a whole other host of weird happenings and loud sounds and objects moving. And Maud sees this and she starts to come around to the idea that something's off in the house. So that night, she, for whatever reason, she shares Philip's room. It's her, Philip, and Diane all sort of having a slumber party in Philip's room. And the door is left ajar. Just as they were preparing to lay down for the night, they spotted 2 large hands floating in the open doorway.
What they look like? Were their nails painted at least?
No, they were wearing Maud's gloves.
Oh.
And like they described them, the hands as being like too big for the gloves. Like there's big masculine hands. So Maud yelled for it to get out and she threw her boot at it. You go, Maud. And then the hands vanished into the hallway, but then reappeared soon after. This time, one of the hands made a beckoning gesture, as if it wanted them to follow it. When no one moved, the other hand closed into a fist and shook angrily at them.
Oh, wow.
And so, and I love this so
a
much.
Sentient being.
So as an evangelical Christian, Maud broke out into singing a song called Onward Christian Soldiers, which I assume is some old hymn that you sing.
Yeah.
So she's singing, and as she's singing, in response, the hands begin to move to the music as if conducting her singing. So they're going, do, going back and forth, conducting her voice. And Maud left the next day, swearing up and down that the family had a devil in their house. Sometime later, Maud's gloves turned up around the house, and so Jean drove him over to her house and was like, hey, Maud, I found your gloves. And she was like, I don't want those gloves. So what Maud does, she gets a pair of metal tongs, carries the gloves out to the backyard and sets them on fire.
Nice.
Yeah. There is what I call the egg incident. Do you want to hear about it?
Yeah.
So one day the family's sitting inside the parlor room.
Right. Like the den.
Yeah. Yep. And they see an egg come floating in from the kitchen. And it floats right out in front of them. And it breaks on the ground. And when it breaks, they smell like a very strong, flower fragrance.
Huh. And
so to counteract that, Jean goes into the kitchen because those are her eggs she paid for. She takes the eggs in the carton, puts a pillow around it, and sits over it so no one can get it. But despite that, another egg comes from out of nowhere, drops on the ground. She's like, "What the hell?" Are
they
this?
Leaving the carton?
Well, here's the thing:
They're just mysterious eggs.
It keeps on dropping, and then when she gets up, she notices those eggs are missing from the carton that she had just checked.
Oh, no.
So somehow it was making matter reappear. And
God, I really hope I'm a poltergeist.
It'd be so much fun.
Oh, God, yeah.
So they spoke to another priest about an exorcism, and the priest was pretty firm and refused to do it, claiming that it would only piss off the poltergeist. He's like, this thing is scary. I'm a different priest this time, and I'm still scared of it. See you guys later. And so Vic, do you remember Vic from earlier, the uncle? He's still pretty obsessed with this thing. It's really shook him. And he's like, you know what?
Shooketh.
Don't worry, guys. Uncle Vic's going to take care of it. I'm going to do my own exorcism. And, Uncle Vic really fucked this one up.
Ah, God, that's what you get for doing your own exorcism.
So this really only pissed off Fred.
Good.
He's like, I'm just trying to have fun.
And you're trying to banish me.
Ghosts just want to have fun. At one point, for a brief moment, there was water pouring out of the walls, ceiling, and floor. And there's loud noises and shit and shit going off. And they're like, oh, fuck. And Vic's like, I'm so glad I don't live here. I'm gonna go down the street and be in my safe, unhaunted house. So that night, the family was kept awake by banging sounds. Days later, a crucifix flies off the wall and sticks to Diane's back. And she can't get it off. She doesn't even know what it is at first. She goes into the bathroom and she goes, oh my God, get it off, get it off. And she's screaming for help. And then another crucifix falls off the wall. And then Jean comes in, tries to help prying the cross off her daughter's back, and she can't get it off. It's like the author describes it as a magnet to her back.
Damn.
And then a portrait falls off the wall and breaks. And they pick it up, and it's the portrait of Christ.
Okay.
And as soon as that breaks, the cross falls off. So that Easter Sunday, which I think is significant that it happened on this day, Jean awoke to find inverted crosses painted gold on the back of every door in the house. And so she goes, well, hold on. She starts to get suspicious because she's like, well,
Right.
my son just bought gold spray paint for his bike.
Yeah, and I'm going to like flip it upside down so then it's like an actual cross.
So all she needs to do is just turn the doors upside down.
Yeah.
Duh,
exactly.
Jean.
Idiot.
Yeah. She was like, oh, okay, maybe my son's been doing some of this stuff. And so she gets his spray paint and she tries to do this. The author describes the crosses as like perfect, like stenciled almost, like perfect straight crosses in this gold paint. So she tries to do it. And there's a lacquer on the wood that prevents it from sticking without running. So she's like, well, my son definitely didn't do this. We don't have any stencils like that. So something else caused these inverted crosses on the door. And so around this time, Fred got so pissed off that he started to show himself. So they started to see him in the corner of their eyes, and even the neighbor, because they lived in these government houses, and they're essentially duplex, so they would share a wall with a neighbor. The neighbor saw it. The psychic also saw it one night. The lights went out, and she looked behind her on the ground, and she saw a big pair of feet, black feet, on the ground. She freaks out. The lights come on, and he's gone. And the neighbor, one morning, the neighbor was by her kitchen sink washing dishes, and she just felt like the air tighten, and she knew someone was standing behind her. So she turns.
Do you look?
She just turned around. Well, she said that she wasn't afraid. She was just like really, really concerned by what she saw, which was this very tall man in a black friar robe. Philip also saw him through frosted glass in the front door of the house. Days later, the family was alerted by Diane's terrible screaming. That's when they found Diane being dragged up the stairs, and they actually saw her sweater being pulled up by something, and they start pulling on her, and there's like significant like resistance, and they can't, and then finally they pull on her, and they all sort of tumble down the stairs.
God, that's horrifying.
And they look, and on Diane's neck are these red fingerprints on her throat, which later actually turn into bruises, and I think there might be photos of those somewhere.
Right. I hope she bailed after that.
Well, so what happens, so this is kind of weird. So a family friend says, you know what you got to do? Hang up garlic around the house.
Oh, God.
And so they do that, and it went away.
What?
They hung up garlic, and it stopped. They never saw Fred again. And eventually they moved out and all that stuff. And people around there still claim that Fred is still around, but he just sort of goes from house to house occasionally. So people will still see the shadow figure. And just so you know, just some historical background, like who is this black monk? Well, there's a reason why they saw a black monk. Because remember, England is like so old.
That's super old, yeah.
Like, how old is America? I mean, yeah, Native Americans, but like 1500s, 1600s, not that far. They go back to like, before Christ. There's stuff going on in England. So centuries prior to this, just before the English Civil War, during the reign of Henry VIII, a monk from a local friary was sentenced to be hanged for the rape and murder of a young girl. These gallows had stood in what would later be the Pritchards' front yard.
There you go.
There you go.
That's disturbing.
So yeah, and let me show you the photos.
Yeah.
This is what they considered, and I'll post these photos on our Instagram just so you guys can see them in all their creepiness.
Also follow us on Instagram.
So if you look here, they see like an arm that they think is an arm holding a black sleeve holding rosaries.
It's horrifying.
So there's some creepy photos there, and that'll be available on our Instagram, which is according to an idiot.
Spooky stuff.
According to an idiot on Instagram. So.
Yeah. You can also follow us on Twitter if you'd like at Idiots Accord. And if you want to send us questions or comments or Tinderellas or any of that good stuff, email us at accordingtoanidiot@gmail.com.
And also leave us a review on iTunes if you like this.
Give us a review.
Yeah.
Let us know how shocked you are that narwhals actually exist. And that's just a giant tooth out of their head. What's your favorite SpongeBob memory? Do you think gene editing is ethical? Also, vitamin C. Maybe take it, maybe not.
Also, hang up garlic around your house because apparently that'll pretty much solve any issue you're having.
Even if you don't have a poltergeist, you still might. So better be safe than sorry. And if you don't, then vampires won't come.
Even if you don't have a poltergeist or vampires, maybe it'll prevent your parents from getting a divorce.
There you go.
That's the best we can hope for,
I think that's a good note to leave off on.
I agree. Well, guys,
I love you so much. Bye.
Hasta la vista.
Hasta la vista.